They lurked beneath the blood moon, ancient faces slick with crimson, their feast interrupted by the whir of a machine designed for daylight. The camera froze, and so did my heart, because what stared up into that lens wasn't meant for human eyes. Nightbound Bloodline presents 5 vampire feasts interrupted by modern technology caught by drones. What you're about to experience isn't urban legend. These are first-hand accounts, messages left by ordinary men and women whose only mistake was witnessing what can't be unseen. 5 drone operators, dragged into a darkness older than civilization, each forced to confront a feast that was never meant for the light of day. We urge you, as always, to listen closely, to absorb every detail. Because in the flicker of a drone's camera, as the blood moon stains the world scarlet, myth can become undeniable reality. The Witness's Story 1. Marcus, 32, night shift security guard. I'll lay it straight. I was always the practical one. Born and raised in a blue-collar family, taught to expect what's in front of me, not what's in ghost books. 32 years old, working the night shift at Dalrymple Estate for a security company nobody's ever heard of. Most nights, it's just me, my flashlight, a battered thermos, and 1,000 creaks from an old place that's been left for dead by the living. September had rolled in cold that year. Leaves clung to the last bits of summer, refusing to fall, but the wind had other ideas. You'd walk outside, and the air felt sharp enough to cut skin, carrying the tang of wet stone, mildew, and something else I couldn't place. A kind of metallic taste, like pennies held too long in your mouth. Maybe that's just nostalgia, or maybe it's warning. The estate was huge. Peeling paint, boarded windows, sagging chimneys. At night, the moon, bloody and enormous, hung over the place like it had unfinished business. On that particular stretch of night, the silence was almost unnatural. Even the usual rats seemed to have cleared out. I remember walking my rounds, boots crunching on gravel. I kept telling myself the stillness meant nothing, that the world had simply fallen asleep. But I kept catching glimpses, little movements just outside the beam of my torch. I told myself it was bats, maybe crows. That's what a sane man thinks. Then the drone, our old workhorse, usually used just to scope out perimeters, kicked into gear. Automated, tethered to the security grid, it buzzed awake and hovered near the courtyard, its lens searching, its motor low and guttural. The screen in my pocket flickered. I saw a blur, a disturbance in the air. That's the moment everything shifted. First, the feeling, the hair crawling up the back of my neck, every nerve begging me to turn back. I heard breathing, wet, heavy, the sound of something not quite animal, not quite human, lingering behind the wall at my left. I froze. The world around me collapsed into static. That metallic taste? Suddenly 10 times stronger. My jaw clenched, palms sweating under gloves. The drone's feed shifted again, capturing the edge of the old courtyard. I watched as the branches seemed to bow away, twisting as if the trees themselves wanted no part of what was happening. When I finally raised my flashlight, I saw it. A creature standing upright, but wrong in every way. It loomed, at least 7 feet, the skin so pale it shimmered white and blue, taut over a frame of brute muscle. The face. God, the face. Cheekbones carved deep, lips black and thin, a snout longer than any wolf, with teeth impossibly sharp, like ice shards stained dark at the tips. Its eyes were what held me. Twin pits, burning black but rimmed in the blood moon's red reflection. Eyes not meant for sympathy or reason, just hunger. It looked at me, then snapped its neck up to the drone, which by then had hovered directly above, filming. For a moment, nothing moved. The air pressed in, thick and cold. I swear I could hear my own heartbeat rattling through my bones, louder than the drone's blades. And then, not with a scream, but a hiss that seemed to fog the lens, the creature lunged. It moved with a smoothness I'll never forget. Not frantic, not wild, but calculating. Each muscle worked in silence as it leaped for the drone. In that split second, the drone veered, its sensors reacting to the sudden mass, and live footage streamed to the monitoring station. Backup alarms blared, but I stayed rooted, sweat trickling down the small of my back. The drone retreated, but the creature lingered, staring, studying my face like it could see me through the feed. Days later, watching playback, I'd see that look again and again. I can still feel it. When it finally melted back into the estate's ruins, I collapsed to my knees. I couldn't breathe. My teeth chattered. My mind flashed through every childhood story, every horror movie, and none of it fit. I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the prey. That night changed me. I can't say if I'm sane anymore, but I know what I saw. And I know the way technology, a simple drone, broke the silence that was never supposed to be disturbed. The witness's story too. Elena, 27, wildlife photographer. My name's Elena. I guess if you were to meet me during the day, you'd think I'm just another adventurer. I chase wolves and owls for a living, and I do it with a camera instead of a gun. When you track wild animals in the mountains for years, you stop believing in fairy tales. You start trusting facts, data, crisp digital footage. That's why this is so hard to tell. It happened last October, just after the first frost. I was in the Carpathian foothills, a place woven with old stories, where fog doesn't just lie on the ground, it floats, swirling around you like fingers. I'd come there to shoot wild boars from the air, hoping to catch nocturnal movement for a nature documentary. Instead, I found that. My drone is my third eye. High-end, heat-sensing, whisper quiet. It can pick up the body heat of a sparrow at 100 yards. That night, the battery barely lasted 40 minutes, but it was enough to destroy what I thought I knew. The night was silent, too silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath as I set up camp, boots sinking into cold mud. The air was rich with the scent of old leaves, moss, and, strangely, a faint metallic tang that hadn't been there during the day. My gloves felt stiff in the chill, the faint buzz of my phone the only company. 20 minutes after midnight, the first anomaly appeared, movement, high speed, through the brush about 200 meters from my camp. The drone caught the shape first. Not a deer, not a boar, but something gliding through the fog at an impossible pace. I pushed the control stick, lowering altitude for a closer look. That's when I saw them, clustered in a hollow beneath a buckling rowan tree. 5 people? No, not people. Not with limbs that long, skin that reflective. They crouched over something. Maybe a deer, maybe not. One of them lifted its head. The face was angular, with features sharp as broken mirrors. The skin was sickly white, too tight over bone, yet there was a grace to their movements, hypnotic, almost beautiful except for the hunger in their eyes. The drone hovered, and through the moonlit mist the feast became clear. Blood slicked their lips and chins. The sound, broadcast through the drone's tiny mic, was faint but unmistakable. Wet slurping, tearing, hushed murmurs in a guttural language I'd never heard. It was primal, ancient. I froze, headset digging into my hair, unable to look away. And then a red LED from the drone blinked, reflected for a heartbeat in the largest creature's eyes like a spotlight. It stood, deliberate and smooth, impossibly tall. It reminded me of a wolf standing upright, but still eerily human in posture. Its eyes, an unnatural orange-yellow, ringed in crimson, locked onto my drone, then up and through it, as if the thing knew I was watching. It bared fangs. Fangs too long. It rose, arching its back, mouth stretching in what could never be mistaken for a smile. In a blur, it swiped at the machine. The drone veered away, camera twisting, before the entire group scattered into the darkness. I was shivering, not from cold but shock. I can still feel the panic in my fingers, the inner urge to run even as I fumbled to land the drone. When I checked the footage later, the whole thing ran barely a minute. But it plays over in my mind, night after night. The blurred faces, that glint of intelligence, the way the feast was ruined by a single flicker of man-made light. I've captured snow leopards, lynx, creatures people only dream of, but nothing I've ever seen left a wound like that. Sometimes I can still taste the iron in the air, and sometimes I wonder, did I stop something ancient that night, or did I only make it angrier? The Witnesses, Story 3. Josh, 40, hiker and amateur filmmaker. My name's Josh. I guess you could call me a wanderer. I spend most weekends out in the wild with a camera and a couple of buddies. Film's my escape. Nothing supernatural ever made sense to me. It always felt like someone else's nightmare. What happened last month still follows me into every dream, and I'm not sure it'll ever let me go. We were in Vermont. The Green Mountains, deep off the beaten path, where the air is thick with the smell of pine and moss. The rivers chill your bones, and at night, fog creeps in and swallows up the stars. We'd pitched camp near a stone outcropping, the fire flickering against damp logs. The moon had that look, oversized, deep, bloody red, the kind of thing that makes you instinctively pull your hood up and glance over your shoulder. It was just after 1 a.m. We'd been joking around, telling dumb stories about haunted cabins and ghosts in the trees, when the air changed. I don't know how else to say it. The wind stopped, but the trees started creaking like someone pressed down, hard, from above. My buddy Jason was fiddling with our drone remote. The only light came from the drone's little LEDs and the dying fire. We launched it, thinking we'd get some moody footage of the woods at night, something to splice into our short film. The camera punched up through the mist, the feed flickering softly on Jason's phone. I remember fat droplets of dew on everything, the cold against my face, the uneasy silence that had swallowed the woods whole. At first, it looked like nothing. Then the drone swept over a clearing, a place we'd walked through earlier, empty, normal. Now, the ground was splashed with dark shadows, and at the center stood what I thought were people in costumes. It should have been funny, but the longer I watched, the harder it was to breathe. There was a table, crudely built from ancient timber, slick with fresh blood. Around it, shadows twisted and moved. Figures so gaunt their bones seemed to jut out from the skin, faces narrow, all wrong, mouths stretched wide. Their eyes glowed, not the way animal eyes reflect light, but pulsed, like coals banked with fire. They were feeding, ripping into something that kicked weakly, then fell still. The noises, too soft, too wet, cut through my earphones. One of them, taller than the rest, lifted its head so slowly I nearly gasped out loud. It looked straight into the camera lens, and, for a second, I felt something cold dive right into my chest, as though it could see me, even from 200 feet. That's when one of them shrieked, sharp, guttural, in a voice full of fury and hunger. The others froze, heads snapping upward in unison. The drone's infrared cut through the fog, capturing jerking, strobing images of inhuman faces slick with blood, teeth flashing, arms lifting as if to shield themselves from the light. The leader leapt, an impossible distance, almost reaching the drone. The signal stuttered, whited out, then came back. We scrambled, yelling, shaking so hard the remote nearly fell into the fire. Jason's voice was a whisper. "We need to go now." We abandoned everything, camera, bags, even our food. We ran. The drone followed at treetop level, catching glimpses of movement far below, those things swirling through the mist, seemingly bound to the dark, bound to the blood moon's power. Back at the edge of the woods, we collapsed in the dirt, covered in sweat and leaves and terror. I watched the raw footage, frame by frame, and every time I see those burning eyes, I hear that shriek replayed in my skull. I'm not the kind of guy to scare easy, but now I can't walk into the forest at night. I see things in the shadows. I hear those wet, ragged whispers in the wind. It was no bear, no prank. What we filmed was real. And if you re-listening, if you ever launch a drone under a blood-red moon, be ready to see something that LL never leave you alone. The Witness's Story 4. Sarah, 29, drone enthusiast and urban explorer. My friends call me relentless. I've never been the type to run from a dare or an abandoned building. Urban exploration is my thing. Most people see vines and rust. I see forgotten stories. That night, I was hunting for one. But what I found, I wish I could forget. It was late October, the kind of evening where the fog moves like living breath between the old lampposts. The air smelled of cold brick and whatever was left decaying in the gutters. I was at the remains of Westminster Asylum, a place the locals call Midnight's House because, they say, anything left outside after midnight goes missing. Always thought it was just talk. I had my drone, a chunky black quad with thermal imaging, and, as usual, a hint of stubborn disbelief. Ghost hunters love this place, but I told myself I was just here for atmospheric B-roll. The asylum loomed above the city, beams sagging, windows grinning gaps. Every step outside sent gravel skittering into the dark. I launched the drone, lights cutting thin lines through the mist. The courtyard was a pit of silence, old weeds growing through cracked stones. A faint whiff of something foul, like rotten fruit and burnt iron, stung my nose. The drone floated forward, the tablet in my hand painting a shaky green world out of the shadows. At first, I thought the movements were just residual heat signatures, foxes, maybe stray cats. But the shapes were too big, too upright. At the far edge of the courtyard, huddled around a black shape on the ground, were 5 forms. Elongated arms, spinal columns curving out from what should have been human backs. Every inch of visible skin glistened, slick as if just pulled from a river. Through the thermal cam, they glowed pale blue. Their limbs worked in spiraling motions, hands, claws, mouths, tearing and lifting to their lips. I was so transfixed by the methodical strangeness, I almost didn't hear the wet, rhythmic sucking, the quiet, guttural words that weren't really words at all. The drone's LED blinked, a small red pulse in the white murk. All at once, every creature stopped. 5 heads turned at once. The face closest to the drone lifted with a smooth, boneless grace I can't shake, the forehead high, and beating with sweat, the mouth too wide, teeth grinning in a way no human could copy, eyes reflecting the light in a deep, vicious crimson. I should have backed away. Instead, I pushed the drone closer. Morbid curiosity or stupidity, I still don't know. The faces all tracked the drone, mouths twitching in irritation or hunger, heads cocking sideways with jerky, owl-like movements. Then one, taller than the rest, lips stained black with blood, rose up on elongated legs, towering, and okay, for 1 second, I believed every legend I'd ever laughed off. A hiss came through the drone's mic, a sound so sharp it made my teeth ache. My hands fumbled, desperate to steer the drone back. The camera blurred, the wireless stuttered. As the creatures advanced, the signal fizzed to white static. I felt a pulse of terror, as if the darkness had reached out and grabbed my chest. I pulled the drone home blind, shaking, head full of that inhuman hiss. When I retrieved it, the thing was covered in a thin film of something sticky and dark. The footage, partly corrupted, still shows the shapes in the mist, the eyes still burning. Since that night, I hear things, whispers in broken glass, footsteps where there should be none. People ask if I believe now. I wish more than anything I didn't have to. The Witness's Story, Witness 5, Daniel, 35, Forest Ranger. Name's Daniel. I've been a ranger for almost 10 years. I know my woods, the stuff that grows, crawls, breathes, and hunts in the underbrush. I track deer, bears, even the lost dogs people abandon when the roads flood. Anything out there, I can handle. Truth is, these mountains teach you to respect what you know and fear what you don't. That night, I met something that erased the line. It was late autumn, deep after midnight. The trees had shed most of their leaves, and the forest floor crunched with every step. The blood moon was bearing down, huge and warped, bathing the woods in a color so unnatural it felt like a warning. I was on a patrol, checking the ruins, a place locals call the Old Stones, remnants of some ancient settlement nobody really remembers. I'd heard odd reports, animals vanishing, hikers coming out shaking, eyes darting like lost birds. I sent up my drone, a new model, equipped with heat, motion, and infrared scanning. I watched its feed as I walked, the harsh red outlines painting the ruins with ghostly clarity. The air was dense, spiced with peat and rotten leaves. But there was a second scent, a low, sharp metallic bite, like old coins and fresh blood. The clearing ahead seemed wrong. No wind, no movement, the silence hanging heavy, like the forest was holding its breath. My drone caught heat signatures, clustered, tall, each pulse too strong for any animal. I moved quietly, feeling my own heartbeat echo in my boots. The drone swept over a stone table. Maybe altar is the better word. It looked carved, scored with marks too ancient and cruel for any normal ritual. Gathered around it were figures, maybe 6 at first glance. Every movement was calculated, heads dipping, arms working as they fed on something limp sprawled across the stone. Their skin glowed through the lens, blue-white and slick, stretched tight over bones that jabbed at the surface. Then, one stood, and every other motion froze. Deep black eyes sunken and bottomless, glistening under the moon's red halo. Its face was long, lips pulled back to expose sharp, jagged teeth stained blood dark. It stared into the drone's camera. The hairs on my arms rose. It didn't blink, didn't move, just watched, like it knew where I was, even with the brush between us. Suddenly, static exploded through my earpiece. The drone shook in the air, its stabilizers searching for something invisible. The feed garbled, pixelated, then snapped clear again, just long enough to watch 2 figures glide across the stones, limbs impossibly flexible, jaws opening in slow anticipation. The lead creature hissed, mouth stretching to a width no man could manage, showing a tongue black as ash. I tried calling in, but the radio filled with static, then a low gurgle, something I felt as much as heard. The drone began to descend, like it was pulled by a force heavier than gravity. I could barely steer. When it crashed just short of the clearing, I bolted, face wet with sweat, every part of me screaming to leave. Back at base, I watched the fragmented footage. The video skipped, jumped, images stabbing between old stones, slick, alien faces, and glimpses of teeth so sharp they gleamed against the moonlight. Since that night, I've steered clear of the old stones. Something's still out there, something that doesn't care for cameras or men. People think technology can save us. Sometimes, it's the only thing that lets us see, to know what really waits where our myths and nightmares meet. But even drones have limits. Sometimes what you catch is a warning you'd rather forget. What do we make of these accounts? 5 drone operators, 5 ordinary lives shattered by the same unblinking nightmare. Each story emerges from a different place on the map, yet all are bound together by the blood moon's unmistakable pull and the pale, hungry faces revealed through the lens of modern technology. Listen again to their voices, the tremor beneath Marcus' practical certainty, Elena's lingering taste of blood in the Carpathian mist, Josh's retreat from everything familiar, Sarah's tormented curiosity, Daniel's whispered warnings. Technology, the tool that was supposed to keep us safe, did nothing but pull back the curtain. For a moment, these vampire feasts became impossibly real. Not legend, not rumor, not urban myth. Reality. Is it any wonder that silence falls on these sites? That none returned, that each bears psychological scars still fresh beneath the skin? The forest, the asylum, the mountain clearing, the stone ruins. These places are forever changed. And so are the people who glimpsed their secrets, caught in the hateful eyes of something old as the world. This is the price of crossing the line. That place where myth fades and the emptiness of reality is replaced by the dread of the unknown. These creatures, hidden for centuries, revealed not by bravado but by accident. The question lingers: are we truly ready for what we might find next, beneath the moon, behind the walls, or in the shuddering darkness between cell phone signals? It's encounters like these that haunt the waking world and remind us, just beyond the reach of cameras and sensors, the old hunger waits. And sometimes, all it takes is a spark of modern light to prove how little we truly understand about the shadows binding our world together. If you too have glimpsed something impossible, a flicker of crimson eyes, a shape slipping through the mist, a camera picking up what can't be explained, we want to hear your story. Share your account in the comments. Let the world know what you saw. And if you find yourself listening on another night, under another moon, remember, you are not alone. Like and subscribe to Nightbound Bloodline and help shine a light on the darkness that lingers just out of sight. This has been Nightbound Bloodline. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, sleep with one eye open. The end.